You could see that guy coming up behind you, and I wanted to make sure you knew that guy was coming at you. I didn't know what he intended.
You're good. Awareness is a skill that I am very skilled at tonight. Just kind of knowing what's going on around you. We've had a couple of tense situations with protesters that we didn't bring on ourselves. People who just kind of walked up to us. One protester got right in Taylor's lens and sprayed something at him. Of course, when you see something that's aerosolized right now, you think it could potentially be something that could be harmful. So we kind of had to run away from that situation. These protesters are angry. There's a lot of tension out here. There's tension at the police and tension at the media who's out here covering this. So at times it can get a little tense, and so you have to know to kind of do a 360 every now and then and make sure everything's going to be okay.
That was another thing that I actually wanted to ask you about, Steve. I mean, I remember a decade ago or more covering protests, and the advice to journalists was, at night, don't turn on your top light, because people will be like moths to a flame. You know, they'll come to the camera and they'll do something that they wouldn't otherwise do. And our goal there as journalists is to just show people what's happening, not to influence people's behavior through our presence. I do feel like that's changed somewhat now that everybody knows they're on camera everywhere. People in the crowd have cameras. They know that police have cameras everywhere. So it's not like, oh, go after the news guy.
We're at 14th and Lincoln.
Yeah, just
9.
It sounds like Ryan here. I can hear Ryan here, but I will say, in this case, that just about everybody, in fact, these folks right here have cameras right now. Just like you said, Kyle, everyone here is rolling constantly. You'll see videos from this all over social media tonight and tomorrow night. I haven't noticed a lot of people swarming up to our cameras. They do come up occasionally, yell a few niceties, and then walk away. Or we've had some people come up to us and say some nice things as well. And in fact, an interaction we just had a few minutes ago with a protester who said that they had talked to a police officer, and a police officer had asked them how they were doing tonight. Just a reminder that these are folks who are out here doing a job right now and trying to disperse a crowd that got angry at certain points. For much of the day, this was a relatively calm protest, and it was very tense. And there we go. There's one more of those folks who want to say a few words on television. But as I said earlier today, it was very calm and very tense, very emotional. People trying to get a point across about what happened in Minneapolis and make sure that their voices were heard. What we see tonight, as you heard the mayor say just a few minutes ago, I thought somebody was pulling on me. It turns out it's just a cable. Oh, sorry, Taylor, as I pull you away. But as you heard the mayor say, a lot of people want this to be a more of a calm protest, and a lot of people think that this is what needs to happen in order to make change. And so we'll continue to monitor this tonight, Kyle, and just kind of see what this turns into.
Yep. Well, I will say that's one good development, because again, we don't want our presence in our cameras to change what people are doing. We want to be able to document it and to show it to people at home, and it puts our crews in danger when people would react very angrily to the sight of cameras over the years. So it's good to hear that now it's just garden variety anger that Steve and others are dealing with, as Sky 9 gives us a look at the streets of Denver as riot police continue to move around. There were barricades at one point. There were barricades in front of the state capitol. There were barricades at Denver police headquarters as they put up signage basically saying, you come on police property tonight, and that's a crime. The 3rd Precinct in Minneapolis burned last night when it was taken by rioters, and police in Denver were clear, you ain't gonna do that here. And there was one little standoff around 7 o'clock tonight where some folks came up and chucked some water bottles at police over the fence. Police came up and gave them a pepper spray shower through the fence, and then that was the end of that. They retreated from the Denver police headquarters downtown, and it's really been the state capitol that has been the focal point of the late night protests 2 nights in a row. And again, remember, we are not that far away from the resumption of festivities at noon tomorrow. Again, the early protests have been quite calm. but there's a call for a third day of action. A lot of different groups involved in this, calling for people to get out there. I mean, when you think about the crowd that's out there, it runs the gamut from elected officials. You have state legislators who are marching out there in the crowd. You had state reps Leslie Herod and Jonathan Singer, who were out there night one, both elected Democrats. You had Tay Anderson, who's leading the march today. He's an elected school board member in Denver. Runs the gamut from elected officials to Antifa. You had Antifa plugging this protest and telling people to come out on all 3 days. So avoid the temptation to say that these protests are monolithic. And if there was any question about that, when they split tonight and started yelling at each other, with the daytime folks telling the nighttime folks, don't do this, don't throw rocks and bottles, go home, we don't want you here. And it's clear that at the end of the day, they were not going to be dissuaded by that because they've decided to take to Civic Center Park. Just a brief observation that remains just an absolutely beautiful park. It's an absolutely beautiful park. As we take a look over toward the amphitheater there in Denver Civic Center Park, which has been the site of a number of interesting protests over the years. I think the Women's March centered there around the amphitheater. So that has also been a place for speech in the classical tradition, as people now just kind of run around through the park looking for what trouble might still be caused. Again, I could spend an entire 30 minutes examining the psyche of people who choose to drive through downtown in the middle of night 2 of the protests. Night 1, I think I get that. Like, whoa, what's going on here? Should have tuned into the news. Night 2, I'm not certain what exactly we're seeing, although we did see a lot of people who clearly wanted to come down to show solidarity with those protesters. You heard when the mayor was on with me about 30 minutes ago that there was one injury to a Denver police officer. I believe the mayor said that he was hit in the leg with a rock, and that it wasn't that serious of an injury. Last night, 3 police officers injured, one of them hit in the head with a rock. Mayor did not have any information about civilians, protesters injured. We did not have a number offered by the city after last night's protests as well. The good news is it appears that things are winding to a conclusion. We are no longer seeing the street takeovers that we saw even just 30 minutes ago, and it looks like they are in mop-up operations now around the state capitol and at Civic Center Park. Want to express my appreciation to our field crews who were out there on the ground tonight. Pardon me. To Steve Steger and to his photojournalist Taylor Schuss, and to Ryan Hare and photojournalist Foster Gaines, and our thanks to the crew of Sky 9 as well. Thank you to all of you for joining us tonight for a look at an evening in this city that will be remembered for some time, because we do not often see protests like this in Denver, and a reminder that we do not yet know what we are going to see tomorrow as the protests resume at noon outside the state capitol. Our coverage continues 24/7 on 9news.com and on the 9 News app. We will also have updates on 9 News mornings starting tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. Thanks for being with us.